What's going on, folks? My name is Josh. You guys are watching The Outdoor Dude. Thanks for coming back to the channel. Today, guys, we're going to be talking about the first 5 baits every beginner pond and bank angler needs to master before they move on to the next level. Let's go. If you guys are new here, I make all sorts of outdoor content, fishing, hunting, camping, gear reviews, and more. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, click that notification bell so you don't miss out on a future video. So like my favorite angler always says, the KISS method is the best method. KISS stands for keep it simple, stupid. Now to keep it easy, guys, we're going to start from the top water column and work our way down. First bait up is going to be a buzzbait. A lot of people would think I should put a frog in this spot, but keep in mind I'm going for ease of use here. A frog would require the beginner to learn how to walk a frog, and that is something that takes a little bit of time to learn. While you should try to master that as a bank angler, a buzzbait is a great chuck and wind bait. It works in a ton of different water temperatures and flat out gets bit. A buzzbait creates an aggressive sound that big fish hate.
Got a fish. Oh my gosh, I got hammered.
A buzzbait catches all different fish sizes, but more often than not, it calls out a bigger fish in the area. In a pond, a 3/8 ounce buzzbait is going to be ideal. Now, this can be somewhat controversial, but I'm going to go with a soft plastic trailer rather than a trailer hook, since I'm usually going to be throwing this around different pieces of cover. A lot of people like to use a cross-style trailer, but since I'm trying to mimic a fleeing bait fish, I'm going to go with a swim bait to go slower, or I'm going to use a curl tail grub for speed because it is a very low drag, heavy action bait. Now, different buzzbaits have different size skirts, so make sure you choose your swim bait or trailer accordingly. You don't want the action of your trailer to interfere with the secondary action of your skirt. In a pond, the fish will almost always be feeding on bluegill, so choose bluegill looking colors like green pumpkin, brown, watermelon red, and black and blue. Match your buzzbait and trailer the best you can with the forage you have in your pond. Now, personally, I like to throw this on a 6'9" to a 7' medium heavy with braid or fluorocarbon, depending on water clarity. Now, moving down in the water column, number 2, I'm going to be picking a spinnerbait. This is another great chuck and wind bait. You can burn this lure right at the surface or slow roll it on the bottom. It catches fish in almost every water column, and it catches fish almost all year round. It is as easy as matching the hatch for the pond you're fishing in and start chucking it out there.
Got one. Oh, it's a good one. Come on, buddy. Oh, I gotta keep them pinned. Keep them pinned. Oh, got him. Got him. Look at that bucket. Look at that thing, guys. 4 pounds, 6 ounce, guys. That is a nice bass right there. Nice fish.
The triangular shape of this bait allows it to come through cover easily, a lot less likely to get hung up than its chatterbait counterpart, making it much more suitable for a beginner. You're less likely to get snagged and lose these baits, which is the most important thing when you're a beginner, and that is saving money. I like to keep it simple and go with white, green pumpkin, or black and blue. Not a lot of white bait fish in ponds, but in early spring when the water is cold, the fish are a lot lighter colored. White gets bit in the spring. Green pumpkin is great for mimicking a bluegill, perch, and crappie. Black and blue is perfect for those darker days, muddy or stained water ponds. When it comes to trailers, you're going to be throwing this thing around cover and bumping it off of cover, so stay away from the trailer hook and go with a soft plastic trailer. Now, guys, the argument on whether or not to run a trailer hook or a soft plastic as a trailer on a spinnerbait can get pretty heated. In fact, I made a video on this very topic, so check the link in the description or the info card up here when you're done watching this video if you want to see that one. Now, when it comes to soft plastic trailers, I've seen people use some really weird stuff. Try and keep it simple. You're mimicking bait fish, so use a swim bait or a curl tail grub. Just try to get your spinnerbaits as close as possible to the bait in your fishery. Anywhere from a 3-inch to a 4-inch swim bait is good for this as long as it doesn't interfere with the skirt. I like the Guggen Saucy Swimmer, the Biospawn Exo Swim, the Zoom Swimming Super Fluke, or Kitech, but those Kitechs are a little bit more expensive. Now, like the Buzzbait, I like to throw this on a 6'9" to a 7-foot medium heavy. But with this bait, I'm going to be using straight fluorocarbon. 15-pound is usually where I like to ride because I fish a lot of heavy grass. I want to be able to pull that fish and that grass up out of that cover. Next up, guys, is a Senko style bait. Now, I say Senko style because there's 1,000 different companies out there making these things, and everyone likes to argue over which one is better. Don't let all that noise cloud your judgment in the beginning. Find something you like, pick it, and stick with it and try to fish that thing and catch some fish. Just have fun, man. Don't get caught up in all that noise. Anyway, there are two ways you want to fish this bait. One is Texas rig and the other one is Whacky Rig. The reason why is because they fish differently. The Whacky Rig is a much more finesse approach. You can kind of hop it a little bit, but not really. You can kind of swim it a little bit, but not really. But the weedless Texas rig style presentation offers a little more horizontal movement and allows you to cover more water with each cast. It also allows more bottom contact, which gives you a better feel of this bait, and it is easier for a beginner to feel the bite rather than watching the line and trying to detect a bite that way. The Texas rig setup is inherently weedless, but the Whacky Rig setup is not unless you use weedless Whacky hooks. I used to use the VMC weedless Whacky Rig hook, but the wire was a little too strong for my liking. I had a hard time getting hooked up on those hooks with that wire engaged. A really good hook that seems like it would work best with a heavier setup for fishing heavier cover. The hook I like more for your typical Whacky Rig finesse fishing is the Guggen Lunker weedless Whacky hook. This hook has a little bit of a softer weed guard. The weed guard is a bit long, but you can trim it as you see fit. Now, if you got to stick up your butt and you're a Guggen hater, you can always go with the VMC weedless Nico hook. A very good hook option for a Whacky Rig weedless hook. For the regular Texas rig setup, I like the Guggen hammer hooks. It's a hybrid between a worm hook and an EWG. I'm going to fish the Whacky Rig setup on a medium spinning rod with 15-pound braid to a 10-pound fluorocarbon leader. Now, with the Texas rig setup, I will fish on a 7-foot medium heavy spinning or casting rod with 10 to 15-pound fluorocarbon, depending on how heavy the grass is. Next up, we're going to be talking about a square bill. You cannot have a pond fishing video talking about the best baits without having a square bill in there. Provided it's not a heavy grass pond, this bait always gets it done. A classic bait fish presentation that gets a reaction bite. For you beginners, a reaction bait is a way to trigger a bass's primal instinct and get them to bite even when they aren't hungry. A square bill is a great bait for when the bass are actually feeding as well. This is another chuck and wind bait that does most of the work for you. The square-shaped bill at the front of the bait pushes against the water and drives the bait down on average 2 to 5 feet of depth. The square bill also allows this bait to deflect off cover while being less likely to get hung up. Like all of the other baits in this video, match the color appropriately to the color of the bait fish in your fishery. Try to get as close to what those fish are actually eating. And if the water is dirty, use bright or dark colors to get a good contrast. Now, with a square bill, the most of the time you're gonna get bites is when it deflects off cover. It gets stuck and then rips up off it is when that fish is just gonna hammer that thing. Now, when it comes to square bills, I really like the Guggen line of square bills, the Banger and the Banger Juniors, but if you can't get a hold of one of those, one cannot go wrong with a Cotton Cordell Big O, the inventor of the square bill. The white Big O gets hammered, but the perch colored ones do really well also. Another great square bill of choice is the Anything Rapala. These guys have been making square bills for a long time and they're pretty much dummy proof. You can buy square bills and crankbaits at all different depths, and they are pretty true to the diving range it says on the packages. As with Guggen baits, they have made their baits very dummy proof in that sense too, and I hope that doesn't discourage anybody. I'm not trying to disparage anybody by saying that. I have short-term memory issues. I need things dummy proof. When you're learning things, it's better to have things easy than complicated. And Guggen Baits has their weights written on all of their jigs, all of their spinnerbaits, and their depths that their crankbaits dive to is also put on their crankbaits, which makes things awesome for a guy like me. Number 5, guys, we're going to be talking about jigs. Now, there are far too many jigs out there, man. Well, not really. I could always use more jigs. They all have a method to their madness, but for today's video, we're gonna keep it simple and we're gonna use what I like to call a hybrid jig, somewhat of a flippin' jig and also somewhat of a swim jig all in one. And that would be the Terminator Pro jig or the Guggen Thick jig. One of them has a rattle and the other one doesn't. I'll throw both of these jigs in 1/4 ounce, 3/8 ounce, and 1/2 ounce, depending on my circumstances. The shape of the jig head is important here. It has to be able to come through grass, but it also has to be able to flip and come through brush and rocks. It has to be able to drag well and not fall over too much either. And these two jigs will do just that. I have used both of these jigs to swim through grass, fish rocks, drag brush piles and tree stumps in North Carolina. When you are pond fishing, you need versatile gear that can do it all, and the jigs do just that. Now, when it comes to trailers, you've got to think about what you're using the jig for. If you're going to be swimming it through the grass or swimming it around docks, I like to use more of a bait fish profile and use a swim bait like Guggen Bait's Saucy Swimmer or a Biospawn Exo Swim. If I know I'm going to be dragging it through brush piles and around a lot of rocks or stumps, I will use a craw profile. For that, I like the Guggen Bait's Kraken Craw or the Biospawn Exo Pod, or even the Biospawn Vile Craw. As far as color is concerned, I'm going to keep it simple again and use white, green pumpkin, or black and blue. I like to throw both of these setups on a 7-foot medium heavy casting rod, and depending on water clarity and how heavy the cover is, I'll be either using 15-pound fluorocarbon or 30 to 50-pound braid. Alright guys, this is where I'm going to end the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you got any information out of this video, or if you think I left anything out, or if there's some trailers or baits that you like to use in your ponds, leave the comments down below. Keep in mind, almost all of my fishing experience has been here in upstate New York. It's almost all grass fishing. I have a little bit of riprap and rocks and stuff like that, a little bit of stumps and brush, a little bit on that end. Most of my tips here are geared towards grass pond fishing. Alright, if you guys like this video, make sure you hit that like button, click the subscribe button, and hit that notification bell so YouTube notifies you when I do a new video. Support the companies that support the channel. Make sure you guys leave some comments, and I'll see you on the next one. Bam! Simple method is the best method.